Welcome back, Guardians. My name is Samlab. Today I would like to share a new discovery with you, where light exists within the darkness. We'll call them darkness subtypes. What are they? Glad you asked. Darkness subtypes aren't exactly a new concept, but for the purpose of this video, let me break it down. So what would we name these subclasses? Number 1, Luster. 2, Egregore. 3, Subsonic. You may remember a video I did recently called What is Luster?, where I focused on explaining what luster is and its relation to Robe and his sunken pyramid within Savathun's throne world. Luster has only been mentioned 3 times within Destiny, with the latest 2 mentions within Season of the Risen lore. I will leave those entries in the description below for you to take a look at. So all that aside, why is this relevant? The lore entry for the exotic sparrow Gouging Light describes a light-touching light type entity that emerges from a cracked container being hastily smuggled from the pyramid by a guardian called Marco. Thus it reads: "In the moment his sparrow crashed, there was no time to react, to brace, to think. There was, however, an instant for him to feel, an unbearable brief eternity, when everything in Marco's world was pain, nothing else existed, just the simple, sharp agony that made up his whole universe. And just as quickly it was gone. Stillness. The sound of a motorized whine returned to him first, ringing in opposition to the pulsing ache in his head. Slowly, his eyes adjusted, and he glimpsed the unbearable brightness of the Martian sun. Slowly, and all too quickly, pain returned to smother all else. The sparrow beside him smoked, reactor shielding intact, but only just. He eyed the long gouge in the ground, where the bike had bottomed out and scraped its way across the ruddy landscape, where it had rolled over his. He looked down at what was still attached of the leg, broken, twisted. Meat. Bile caught in his throat, and he choked it down before realizing the mangled limb was the only corner of his flesh free from pain. The sun roils. White beyond white plums lick worlds. Hope births agony, births stillness. Strained electro-matriarchic music still spurted through the sparrow speakers. Marco struggled to inhale, and a flutter in his chest hinted at the punctured lung. Punctured. His ragged breath caught, and he looked for the sample containers packed so carefully and cautiously by the guardians who'd survived the raid on the throne world pyramid. His gaze fell on a container, 6010, lying cracked against a spar of basalt. Yawning plasma, thick embrace, light gouging light, only warm shadows. Black veins snaked through the red dust, through the wreckage. Hand-delved glory strips pain from those too weak to savor. The wound through the soil, and where flesh met dirt, had already traced into his twisted limb. The sparrow's carriage throbbed like a heart, and Marco could feel the hymnal rhythms in his leg. Worlds burned free, sweet, still ash. Visions crowded his mind, spilling into his mouth, and lungs threatened to drown him in bliss. His shattered leg turned and popped, and righted itself, and euphoria filtered through him where pain should be. Deep, still, safe embrace. He dragged his sidearm from its holster, gasping as he took careful aim at the cracked reactor shielding. So soft and still. His mind tore free, and in an unbearable brief eternity, he gulped one final breath. Lie still. What remained of Marco squeezed the trigger. Whatever this thing was, it seemed to feed on the light in order to restore its host, ultimately restoring, enhancing, and from the sounds of it, modifying its host like Siva. Not convinced? Alright, bear with me. Let's take a look at the next subtype, Egregore. We've all heard or seen it before, and experienced this infestation like a blight that seems to overwhelm and cripple its surroundings. Guardians would have experienced this on the Glycon ship, orbiting the Mars anomaly, before Savathun returned our beloved planet. Egregore is a type of physical manifestation of darkness, which subsumes everything and changes entire landscapes. Have a listen to this chest armor lore entry titled Eidolon Pursuant Robe. Thus it reads.
You've had this for years and never thought to mention it.
Eris runs her fingers over the grime-clouded containment glass, housing a large growth of Egregore within the Drifter's derelict. Wasn't hiding it. Drifter rolls Eris's Ahamkara bone over his knuckles. Ain't nobody ever asked. Hell, you've walked by it before, Moondust.
What wonders you must have buried in this heap,
Eris muses. The emerald shine of her eyes darts back and forth behind the cloth. I could, Drifter saunters up beside her, give you a tour.
We haven't the time. Tell me, what have you learned from this Egregore sample?
Drifter wrinkles his face and looks up to the massive contained growth. Eris massages annoyance from her brow. She sees the playful coyness in his eyes, the hidden information he holds as bargain for some trade.
Do you at least remember where you found it?
Sister? You don't want to know. Eris locks her eyes on the Drifter's face. He staggers back awkwardly and shrugs. I see little nothing in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't have a name, and I don't want to go there alone.
But you could take me.
Eris tests his defenses. Drifter brushes off the mottled fur of his shoulder guard and leans against a poorly fastened railing. Only if I take your jump ship and I drive. Eris sighs and pushes through him.
No.
Drifter springs after her. So that's it? You're leaving?
You're being evasive, rat.
Eris plucks her Ahamkara bone from his hands and stows it beneath her cloak.
Contact me when you're willing to speak plainly.
Drifter calls after her, hands outstretched. You don't want to stay for dinner? Eris halts, considering what disgusting amalgamation of refuse would constitute a meal here. She glances over her shoulder, one last attempt to extract information.
It is strange. When Savathun drew Mars back into our space, it was free of the Egregore, but the Glycon and Leviathan both returned rampant with fungal growth. Why?
She asks. He gives in. You know it sings. If you burn it just right. Drifter thumbs behind him. Subsonic resonates in a funny way with pyramid tech.
Is that so?
You don't trust me? And cue the Drifter. Our quick-witted Risen has somehow been ahead of everything taking place in the world of destiny. Wherever the Drifter had been in the past, it has given him an advantage that no one else seems to know or have. Whatever this Egregore Dark is, it has been around for a long time. You may be wondering where you could have seen it before. I'll tell you. Within the Drifter's ship, the derelict. For anyone wondering how to do this, it's pretty simple. Visit the directory and load into Gambit, and if you're quick enough, you can see Egregore growing behind the Drifter. But the mystery doesn't end there. As we keep in step with Eris, we catch up with her on Europa. Have a listen to this Armor lore entry titled Eidolon Pursuant Pants. Thus it reads: Elsie is not at camp in Beyond, perhaps another time, but Eris emerges from Transmat to see the Drifter alone, interrogating Elsie's strange floating companion.
Well, what are you?
Drifter points at the thing with distrust.
Leave it be. The ziggurat awaits our experiment,
Eris says, saddling a mostly materialized sparrow and blasting off into the snow across the frozen European flats.
And don't touch my stuff!
She hears Drifter shout at the thing as he follows after her. Frigid sleet stings Eris's face red atop the ziggurat. It is a welcome sensation compared to the prickling numbness that sticks her fingers. She grips the harvested stalk of the Egregore fungus tightly in one gloved hand, and in the other, a hot flare disgorges plumes of jade smoke. She lights the stalk at both ends. According to the Drifter's instruction, ashing spores furl into dense clouds that envelop her body, obscuring her sight in soot-black shroud until it blocks out all else. Faint whispers, a charcoal swell through turbulent winds. Tone that forms words across the surface of her mind.
You hear it?
Drifter asks, his voice a whisper outside her awareness. The ziggurat resonates like a turning fork. The vibrations themselves take shape within the smoke, and Eris is drawn towards somewhere distant and empty. She follows, and the smoke swirls with points of color like stars, separated by lonely rifts of black expanse. Echoes radiate from the black deep like graviton ripples through space. They wash distortion over the stars until breaking against 4 other points, 2 greater, 2 weaker. Ghostly strands of incorporeal egregore between them. She then sees the pyramids of Europa, Luna, and Savathun's throne world as one. Their structures melded and overlapping. The connections cauterize in her mind like a vivid memory. Eris blinks, and the sensation is gone. The stalk is ash in her hand. What is Egregore, and why was Eris engulfed by dark smoke? The further this story goes, the more mysteries there are to unravel. Until the truth is revealed and the veil peeled away, keep hanging on to hope. For now, that's all I have for you. Hopefully you have found this video entertaining, useful, and easy to understand. If you did, be sure to comment below and give this video a like. Also, consider subscribing and click the bell notification to find out when my next upload goes live. And if you would like to help this channel keep going, then also consider buying me a coffee, because every little helps. Remember that no matter what you're facing at this moment in time, you can do all things. Stay safe and Godspeed.